Welcome to Sun City TV's Community Connections show. Thanks to our Sun City Travel Club, who are hosting TSA Manager Chuck Beaver, who discusses TSA operations, as well as going to be sharing updates on travel protocol and safety tips. SCTV is very privileged to share this pertinent information with you, our Sun City neighbors.
Well, it is great to be back here. A couple of years ago, how many people in here, if any, joined the military on the enlisted side since 1975? Anybody? One way in the back? Okay, I always have to make sure because back in 1974 through 77, I was in charge of Army recruiting for all of South Carolina. And I got to have the honor and privilege of helping to write the first entrance exam for all military enlisted. So I always have to check and make sure no one's out to take their revenge out on me. It is fun to be back here. I love doing this and talking to folks. I envy you being retired, but I will tell you that technically I am on leave right now, and I am on leave until March 6th, where I will join the group of retirees. What's really good is I joined a union in my first job in September of 1965, so I finally figured out how to retire. So, what are we going to talk about today? That's the real question. Let's see, we had this working. Maybe we don't. There we go. Okay, well, this is our mission as TSA, and if you look at it, there's something very interesting. You don't even see the word airports, airplanes, or aviation in there. And the reason is we are responsible for the safe movement of people and commerce throughout the entire United States. Now, what does that really mean? Well, back in '01 when we formed, it was right after 9/11, and it's amazing working now at the airport. About 30% of the people that work for TSA were not even alive on 9/11. And so, to them, it's just a history lesson. I entered the Army in 1970, and the Korean War was a history lesson. 3 years later, I was serving in South Korea, and we had a platoon sergeant there, and where he was living was the exact same piece of terrain he was on when the Korean War ended. And so we have to remember that the mindset of people today is different than it was then. And so since that time, we have served since 2003 as a part of the Department of Homeland Security. Contrary to popular belief, we do not go out and run into homes and arrest people like some others. But at any rate, here's what we're responsible for. So when you stop at their gas station and fill your golf cart up with gas or however they run, I don't know anything about golf carts, we're responsible for the security of the pipeline that brings gasoline here. A few years ago, there was a fire on a pipeline over in Alabama. We sent inspectors there. They went to the county sheriff, said, "We're going down to inspect the pumping station." He said, "Pumping station of what?" He didn't even know the fuel pipeline went through his county. So, ports, if you go down to the Port of Savannah, we're responsible for that. Small airports, general aviation, we're responsible to oversee them and the training program of pilots. So it's a wide range of responsibilities that people don't know we really do. This is a picture of what it looks like. Oversight of 4 million miles of highway. Where do you think one of the most important intersections in the country is? And many of you have driven through it, I'm sure.
Washington, D.C. 95 or 695?
Probably the most important one is in Atlanta. You have Interstate 75, Interstate 85, and Interstate 20 all intersecting at one location.
That's right.
If that area was destroyed and taken out, can you imagine what would happen to interstate commerce? It'd be pretty bad. And so those things are very serious. Bridges, railroads, If you ride mass transit, if you decide to take a trip on Amtrak, one of those that tours the country, we're responsible for oversight of that in a lot of different ways. Not so much the rail operation, but the security of the system. What are we really looking at? We're looking at the people, baggage inspection. That's probably the biggest question that comes up. Can I put this in my bags? Can I put that in my bag? So here is the number one lesson I would ask you to pay attention to. When you get ready to travel, especially if you're flying, please check your empty bag before you start packing. Your bag. If you're traveling and you have something that you think, well, they might want to look at this, put it on top of the bag. Let's say it's a lot of jewelry because you're going out on a cruise or something and you have jewelry in there. Put it towards the top of the bag, because if you bury it in the bottom of the bag, we are going to unpack your suitcase. And you've spent all that time getting clothes pressed, putting them in the bag, making it neat, and then we unpack and go, thank you, have a great day, and hand you this bag with a heap, who said yep. No, we try to do it neatly, but sometimes things just happen. And yeah, it's always fun. Airport perimeter security. The Atlanta airport, believe it or not, is a small airport. It's only 4,600 acres. The Denver airport is like 24,000 acres. Our fence line in Atlanta is 32 miles around it. And we check it almost continuously because there's things happen. People will cut the wire fence to go in. Places where runoff from water will wash the dirt away, and we want to make sure it stays secure because we don't want anybody getting in there and messing with it. As we work to secure and do our job, these are some of the federal partners that we work with. And, you know, it's like alphabet soup up there for sure. But as an example, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, you know, you don't think of that when you think about flying. But what better way, excuse me, to cause a problem than have a bunch of terrorists get together? You'll see some other things on there, DHS Investigative Services. And for a 9-month period, I worked in an office up in Atlanta where we had our investigators, and they investigate all kinds of things that, you know, you wouldn't think about impacting the travel industry. But again, it can be anything from suspicious behavior near a port, near a pipeline. One of the big things right now that you hear about on the news, at least to some degree, is the big impact coming on power supply, right? Now, we've had very little discussions about it, but that's going to be a big thing because as artificial intelligence builds and they build these data centers, somebody's got to take responsibility for overall security of the grid. We're talking physical security, not the operational security. And so we're going to see involvement in those types of things. One of my least favorite is in there has to do with providing security for very important people. These are people who think they're important, at least. And a lot of them think they need to have security or special assistance or special screening. We work very hard at making sure everybody gets treated the same. When we started way back in '02, we provided special security and escorting people through security and all that. By and large, we do not do that. Members of Congress come. If the local police want to escort them to the front of the security line, fine. But we're not going to do it. In fact, in Atlanta, we do not manage the queuing process. That's the city of Atlanta's responsibility. We don't start worrying about you until you start to show your ID, and we're going to talk about how that's going to work in the future for you. So just some groups up there that you may not think about that we're involved in. Locally, Wandered too far. There we go. State and local. One of the things that's amazing is Atlanta also happens to be the nation's center. Remember I said the 3 interstates come together for theft of tractor trailers. And so we watch that very closely and we monitor them. And in fact, one time we were real smart. We said, we're going to set up at one of the way stations outside of Atlanta. We're going to pull every tractor trailer in and start checking credentials of the drivers. Oh, that was not a smart decision on our part. We had tractor trailers backed up, and then all those drivers, of course, they got in their radios, and they were all going different directions. But we will occasionally pull vehicles and check them as well if we think there's something in there. And in one case, we just checked the tractor trailers bringing deliveries to the airport, and we x-rayed them. You know, they have these big machines, and there was a truck delivering cargo to the airport. The cargo also included 6 people in the trailer. Now, who were they? I don't know. But so we take our job very seriously in all kinds of realms to make it safe. Let's see, anything else on there? Probably the last one, Georgia Emergency Management. As you know, occasionally Mother Nature decides she wants to send some high waves to the coastline or tornadoes. We will work with GEMA to make sure that we're prepared to respond as well. The closest airport here, Savannah, and I'm sure Charleston does the exact same thing, will pre-position people to get them in to the Savannah airport to begin operations, because it's possible that some of the people that work in the Savannah airport are going to have to deal with damage to their homes. And my boss in Atlanta has responsibility for the Savannah airport, so we're going to do that as well. Because again, we want to make recovery as rapid as possible. I'm almost to what you really came to hear. So the other part here, just things that we deal with. I said FIFA coming up right now, that's a huge factor. Any soccer fans in here? Okay, that's what I thought, a couple. Everybody thinks it's going to be a big deal. I don't think it's going to be a big deal for the airline industry because there's only so many seats on the planes, and unless the airlines add a lot of flights, it's not going to be any more than flying on Memorial Day weekend, which happens to be the busiest day of the year, the Friday before Memorial Day. Okay, all of the things you would expect, police, fire, all that, we interact with them on a daily basis. This is something you may not think about. In Atlanta, we have 11 bomb technicians assigned to TSA. These are all gentlemen who, and they all are male, who have years and years of experience in either military and or police department work. Their job is, if I'm looking at the x-ray image that your bag goes through and I see something that looks suspicious, like it could be an explosive, I'm going to call them and ask them to come and look at first. As a true life example, we had a bag come through, one of our operators looked at it and said, that don't look good. He called, the bomb technician came down and said, ooh, that don't look good. So we then called the Atlanta bomb squad. And of course, by that time, we know who the bag belongs to. And so we call the airline tells us where they're flying, what gate they're on, and we go find that particular passenger and bring them back. And the bomb squad's there, and they have that robot that you see up there, right there, and they're grabbing the bag out of our baggage screening area, and they're going to put it in a containment device and take it out and blow it up. And the gentleman shows up. He happened to be an airline pilot. Yeah. He had just bought his own private aircraft out in Oklahoma. And he was flying out there to pick it up. And he thought, well, I've never flown this aircraft. If there's an accident, I'd like somebody to be able to find me, so I'm going to take some signal flares with me. Oh, it gets better. So then he says, well, I don't want the signal flares just, bouncing around inside my suitcase, so I'm going to put them in a pipe. Now they could slide out the end, so I'm going to cap both ends of the pipe. And what has he created? A pipe bomb. Needless to say, he was a bit embarrassed, but it was no harm, no foul. But we took it very serious, and it's not unusual. Big times coming up, 4th of July, New Year's Eve. Now you can buy fireworks almost anywhere, right? And so people will buy fireworks and they're going to visit family in some other city or whatever, and they'll want to put all their fireworks in their bags. So we take those things serious. And that's how they work for the most part. So here we go. How are we going to make your travel experience? And please do not wait till the end to ask questions if there's something that you go, what about? I would rather answer it as we go through. So, first of all, you make your, anybody have reservations to fly yet? Oh, a bunch of you. We're screening you right now. We really are. As soon as you make your reservation, your name goes into a database called Secure Flight. And we don't do much screening, but you're there and you're already listed. And the purpose of that is that there is national tracking so that we can go back and if an incident occurs and we know who all had reservations on that flight. And it'll build. As we get closer to the process, we'll do some other things. And you see some other things up there about pilots and airline employees and hazmat truck drivers and TWIC or workers, people that work in the ports. They all go through a background check. And we're going to look rather deep. As an example, if you apply for global entry, and remember the term global entry, I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. Some people you'll go through in no time and get it. Other people it might take you months. As an example, and this isn't to be sad, but it makes a great story. My wife passed from cancer 4 years ago. And literally, I was walking my dog and saw this lady rolling her trash can out. And we've become friends.
And go on.
Okay, friends, yes. And I tell people she's my trash lady. But she doesn't think that's very funny. But the point being, so she applied for global entry. Now, you tell me, would you approve this right away? Her father grew up selling explosives for his job. Her brother is a pilot, and she's from Gainesville, Georgia. In fact, she's really best friends with the current Secretary of Veterans Affairs. She got married when she was like 21. Her husband was Iranian. How many would approve her for global entry, decrease? Yeah, and she didn't understand why it took so long to get approved.
Naive.
Now, she didn't do anything wrong, but it's all of that connections. So if you've applied for global entry or pre-check and it's taking a long time, I will tell you, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It means there's just something that raises somebody's suspicious eyebrows about your background. Sometimes it can be caused by something as simple as a typographical error. Because that is processed by Customs and Border Protection, and I will tell you, they take their job very, very seriously. And part of this doesn't particularly relate to what's going on as far as travel, but as an example, the TSA administrator, pretty high-level position, was flying back from Brazil into Atlanta and was going to get off the plane, and we wanted to go meet him. You know, he's a big dude. and they wouldn't let us go meet him at the plane because he had not yet been cleared by Customs and Border Protection to come into the country. Because do you know if anybody taking any foreign travel in the next 6 months or so? Okay. If you fly back into Atlanta, you're not in the United States when you land. You are not in the United States until you clear customs. Okay? So it's always interesting. If somebody dies on the plane, where did they die? Technically, they died whatever country they left from. But my point being, Customs takes their job very seriously. And so the fact that it might take some time to get your requests approved doesn't mean anything's bad. It's just they're being very, very thorough. So here's the way the process begins. It starts with this initial vetting when you make reservations. About 72 hours in advance, we really start to look at who's coming. And we say, is this person trustworthy? And there could well be a terrorist on your plane with you. And we know it. I will also tell you there will be some other people on the plane as well to protect you. But the reason we may let them fly, we may want to know who they're talking to. Who are they going to meet? Because think about it, if you're on a plane, then you're in one of those old configurations, 2 and 3 on the side of the aisle, and I get on the plane and you get on the plane and we're sitting next to each other, we can have a conversation, and how many people can hear us? Not very many. Now, if you're talking to me, a lot of people, because you'll probably have to yell for me to hear you. But my point is, we're going to use it for our use, okay? But we're not going to let anything happen. We're just making sure we monitor who is on the plane. And we're going to go look at all kinds of lists about people on the plane. Where are they coming from? Where are they going? And we're going to use it to do good work. As an example, a number of years ago, there was a gentleman one evening, had a knock at his front door, and we, TSA in general, was there questioning him. Because 2 weekends a month, he flew to Brazil on Friday morning and came back Sunday night. I think it was Brazil, but South American country, I'll just put it that way. Doesn't that seem unusual to you? Fly down there Friday, come back Sunday.
Hot weekend.
Yeah. See, your minds all went right in the gutter, okay. No, the real thing was he was a dentist, and he was going down there to teach at a dental school. And so he had a perfectly legitimate reason, but we wanted to know why. On the other hand, as an example, we check, a number of years ago, we got a call from the district attorney in New York City. They had found a young man who, when he got off the plane, had a backpack full of handguns. And he had flown out of Atlanta. And it was great. It was December 21st. You know, so there goes your Christmas vacation. And what was happening, and this was a number of years ago, before airline and airport employees had to get screened. He was working with a current airline employee. And the airline employee would have a backpack like that one sitting up there. And he would just go park in a parking lot and go to work. It just happened to be full of guns. This passenger had a backpack like that, just filled with normal travel clothes. They would meet up in one of the restrooms in one of the concourses in the airport. And when they came out, they had switched backpacks. It took about 15 minutes to figure out who his accomplice was, because he didn't want to give it up. So they just said, okay, let's look at your travel history. They looked at his travel history, looked at all those flights, and figured out who was on the flights with him. The same name kept appearing on every flight. So very quick, we could identify the person, and all things worked out well. We do some other things. You may see us doing some random checks throughout the airport, checking IDs. We may randomly check up an aircraft as people board for no reason other than we want to do that so people don't know. We have people going around in plain clothes watching what's going on, as does the city police in most every major city, because people's behaviors are pretty good indicators of what's happening up there. And then you get to start screening, and this is the part where people's interest starts to peak. So let's talk about checked baggage first of all. Excuse me. When you get ready to travel and you have checked baggage in Atlanta, which is where I can talk, that bag is going to get put on a conveyor belt and go down to a room. And in Atlanta, if I can get, we have 57 CT machines. Any of you ever go to the hospital and you get a CT scan? We have 57 of them. We do somewhere in the vicinity of 40,000 bag checks a day using those machines. And so those 40,000 bags, we're going to look at them, take the image. They have computer algorithms built in that identify what's in there. We rotate them, screen them, look inside. We can do all kinds of things. Those that we think are suspicious, we are going to then send into a room and we will search the bag. Hopefully, you'll know we searched your bag. How do you know?
Put the card in on top.
Yeah, you'll get a love note that says we've searched your bag. And it'll say, please, thank you, blah, blah, blah. And in 90% of the cases, there's nothing of danger in there and everything gets returned. What do we find? Sometimes people will ship the strangest things. They'll ship some hazardous material because they're going to their home in the middle of Montana out in the countryside, and they need to take some chemical with them for something they're going to do on the farm. We'll get the cremated remains of loved ones. And I recall we had a case, bag came in, they opened it, our officer knew immediately what it was. He stopped literally and prayed, did what they had to do, which is look for explosive material, put everything back, closed the bag, prayed again, and sent it on its way. So the people do a good job. I will tell you, we built those baggage rooms in 2005. They are we have probably, there's nowhere in the room you can go and not be on video. Since 2005 in our checked baggage locations, anybody want to guess how many items have been stolen in Atlanta? 0. 0. And what's interesting is if you were to claim and say, well, so-and-so TSA took this out of my bag, we can take that bag tag number and tell you where that bag was from the time it went on a conveyor belt to it got on a plane. And in most cases, will not even have looked at it. So rest assured your bags are not going to get stolen or hassled or anything by us. But again, think about what you're putting in there. So now we get to the passenger screening. Yes, sir.
You can't take cremations?
Say what?
You could take somebody who's been cremated on an airplane?
Sure. Cremated remains? The question is, can you take cremated remains? Absolutely. Now, if you put it in a solid metal container, that's going to create a problem. But if you put it in a ceramic type vase, it'll go, because the X-ray is going to tell us what's inside of it. I mean, it won't tell us, oh, that's Sandy Beaver in there, okay? But the remains will be in there, and then what we would do is we would take the container, and we take a little piece of cloth, actually it's paper in baggage, and we go over the outside, and we put it in a machine, and the machine will tell us if there's any explosive material there. Okay? And is it sensitive? Yes. If you put a teaspoon of salt in a 25,000-gallon swimming pool, and we test it for that particular salt, it'll tell us what concentration of salt is. So it's very thorough. So if you work in any former construction or current construction workers in here, if you worked around a lot of explosive materials or military, like on the holidays at Christmas, when all the troops out of Fort Gordon and Fort Benning come through our airport, Fort Jackson would go out of Columbia, and all those troops have been out there on the rifle ranges and all of that. If we start testing all their stuff, it's going to show positive. But we know what type of explosives it's going to show. So it's very common. But yeah, you can, yes ma'am.
Hold on. Can you talk about how TSA manages luggage locks that people put on luggage when it goes through TSA?
With the locks or
Put a lock.
TSA locks. Don't waste your money. First of all, that's the first thing I would tell you. It is a waste of your money to lock a suitcase. Most of those bags have a default combination, if it's a combination lock. If you put a padlock on it, it's easy. Anybody have a jacket with a zipper on it? If you look down at the zipper, right, and you will see where the zipper, the little piece that sticks out, connects to the other part, there's a little gap, right? Yep. All I got to do is take a screwdriver, lift that little gap, I have unlocked the bag. Don't waste your money. If we need to get in your bag, we are getting in your bag. So what you're doing is preventing good people from staying out of it. Yes, ma'am. I get it, that's okay.
There are colored straps that people wrap around their suitcases so they can easily identify their bag. Can we do that, or is that a no-no?
Yeah, can you put colored straps or some other marking? You know, people will put string with all kinds of stuff. You can do that, and it doesn't bother us, but the dilemma becomes it's one more thing that can get stuck in the equipment on the way. You know, if you have something like that and that strap comes loose and it gets stuck, it's going to delay the bag getting screened. I understand it because everybody has those used to be the old black roller bags, and now they come in color, shapes, and sizes. But if you want to do that, instead of doing that, what I would do is, for me, I would say go to Home Depot or Lowe's or some hardware store and get some of the colored duct tape and just put that on the handle, because it'll be tight on the handle and it won't cause a problem. Okay? And I can only talk to Atlanta. In Atlanta, we have 1,300 officers. Do we train them? Yes. Do we tell them what the rules are? Yes. There should be nothing done that would humiliate somebody. Now, there are going to be some things that people will be uncomfortable with, because we know that people tend to hide places or hide things in two strategic places. One is in the groin area, okay? And the only way, if it has alarmed, to determine what it is to search that area. The other, and my mother, God bless her and rest her soul, where did she hide her money when she was on vacation?
Death Valley.
Yeah, she had right in there, and that's what they're looking for. Now, there's also, you can do that in a manner that's respectful of somebody's privacy, but they've got to clear those areas. What I would recommend, if that occurs, you note the time, you note the location, and you ask to speak to a supervisor or manager on the spot. And then make sure that all occurs, and then when you get to wherever, you go to a website, called TSA.gov. It's very simple to remember, TSA.gov. And there will be a link in there to where you can send a message to TSA headquarters. And you put that information in there. And within 48 hours, 72 hours, we will get that message. In Atlanta, we have a gentleman by the name of Russell Whitaker, who is our customer service manager. And Russell is a bear. He will go, he will pull the video, he will look at the video, and then address whatever concerns there are from that point on. Most airports are going to do that. But trying to keep track of 1,300 people when you're screening the volumes of people, as an example, I think today in Atlanta, just through the checkpoints, 104,000 people. So it's hard to watch everyone, but that's the thing to do. Record the date, time, location, take a picture of the area to make sure, speak to a supervisor or manager, and then go to tsa.gov and put it in the email. Okay? Let's see. And then you get ready to go through security. The rules forever have been, you have to have your boarding pass, have to have an ID. Those are still the rules, but the truth be told, at least in Atlanta, you don't have to have a boarding pass. Because when you present your ID, and I'm going to talk about real IDs and all in a minute, when you present your ID and you slide it in the machine, it verifies your name, and then it's going to go check. Remember I talked about secure flight? It's going to go and look in secure flight and see, does this person have a flight today? And if you do, you're on your way. If sometimes there will be issues there, especially if you've changed a flight or something, there may show 2 flights, and they'll ask what flight you're on, and you'll tell them, because people change flights throughout the day for various reasons. So those things are all going to happen. Technology, I'm not going to spend a lot of time about those. What I will say is these two, this one right here, that's the one a lot of people that's where you got to go and you stand like this, and everybody goes, I don't want to do that. You get exposed to some small energy bursts. You would have to make 10,000 phone calls on your cell phone to get that same level. Very, very safe. And so you don't need to worry about it at all. But what's it doing? It's looking for things basically between the clothing and the body. Where we have the problem with that in the major metropolitan city is, and Atlanta used to be the site of the largest transgender conference in the country. We're going to screen you the way you look. And what I mean is, if somebody who is transgender presents as a female, but they're really male, we're going to push the button that says they're a female. And what's it doing? It's looking for certain things above the waist in the absence of certain things below the waist. And when that ain't right, it's going to send a message. And then we have to resolve it. Most people in that community, what do you think a reasonable approach would be for them? To just tell the operator, I'm male, I'm female, I'm confused, I don't know. But, and I don't mean that to make light of anybody at all, but I've spoken at transgender conferences, and when I tell them that, they go, oh, I didn't realize that. But that's what it's doing. It's looking for things that are not visible but not inside the body. We find money, we find drugs, we'll find weapons, all kinds of things. You read or listened to the news recently about money smuggling out of Minneapolis. Anybody hear that story on the news? Yeah. Let me tell you how they do it. I've known it for years. If I'm flying, I make 2 reservations. One, Atlanta to Minneapolis. On a separate reservation, I make one Minneapolis to whatever foreign country I want to go to. When you travel in the United States, how much cash can you carry? I don't care how much. As long as you're not leaving the country, you can carry as much as you want. Now, we have people every day travel $2, $3, $5, $10 million in cash. They're registered because where they live has financial issues, so they literally move cash around the world. Okay, that's fine. But if I'm flying someplace and I want to go take $1 million with me because I'm going to Vegas and I want to gamble, I can take $1 million. I just have to let people know I'm taking it. And since it's domestic, I don't even have to do that. Now, so I'm flying to Minneapolis. I get to Minneapolis, I took my $2, $3, $4 million. I'm in the sterile, secured area, correct? All I have to do is walk and get on my next plane, going to an international location. But remember I talked about secure flight? When you come through Atlanta with all that cash, we're just going to report the fact that Chuck Beaver went through security today, Atlanta to Minneapolis, with $2 million to an organization called Bulk Cash Collection Center. They monitor that. If all of a sudden my name's popping up that I'm doing that every 2 weeks, it's not hard. So that's not been a secret. That's been going on. Everybody knows it's going on. Nobody chose to do anything. Some other things. Yes, sir.
Hold on, please.
Okay, I have a replacement knee, and it has a metal component to it. Now that triggers these alarms. Do I need to tell agents in charge that I have
Okay.
a problem?
Okay, so the question is, knee replacement, hip replacement, shoulder replacement, if they're metal, should you tell people? It doesn't hurt to tell them, but if you ask to go through this piece of equipment right here, it should not alarm because it's internal. If you go through this one, which is a metal detector, it's going to alarm, especially if your knee replacement is metal. It's going to alarm. So, yeah. If you want to go through here, all you have to do is say, hey, I have a knee implant or knee replacement. Can I go through the AIT? They'll gladly let you go through there. Because I have news for you. We would rather you go through there than me have to do a pat down of you. You're a nice gentleman, I'm sure. But I don't. Should we vote? Is he a nice gentleman? Anybody know him? But no, the last thing I want to do is pat you down. Okay, so that's all you have to do.
I get that too.
Yeah, knees, shoulders, hips, that's what you want to do. A couple of other things. You'll see people sometimes at the airport taking little samples. This is the machine it goes through to tell you if there's explosives. And this one is primarily bottle liquid scanner, because that's it. I can't take my water or my Coca-Cola or whatever through. That's why 1 quart clear plastic bag, no containers more than 3.4 ounces, all of those things. There are some exceptions, medical stuff. That'll tell us what's in the bottle. Down the road, and it's being tested, is when your carry-on baggage goes through this machine right here, a CT. At the same time it's going through and doing the CT scan, it's going to tell us what's in the bottles. When that is done, then bottles with liquids will be allowed. But that's still a ways down the road, but we are testing it right now.
Frozen water,
Yeah, the question is, why the heck can I take frozen water but not liquid water? He didn't ask it exactly that way. The reason is, frozen water freezes at what temperature? 32. If you add things to the water, what happens to the freeze point of it? It changes. It goes down. And that's the primary reason. If it gets down to where it'll start to freeze, and so that all has to do with the temperature. Okay, that's the equipment we have. By the way, the CTs, ours are analogic in Atlanta. About 90% of all the CTs, regardless of what name is on them, is made by a company called Analogic, which is located, they say it's in Peabody, Massachusetts. I would say Peabody, but they, It's Peabody? Okay. Got me. But that's where that's done. Okay, so here's some things to think about. I said about go to tsa.gov, and you'll see links to these places. There's all kinds of staff up there that you can coordinate with and ask. Any disabled veterans in here? One? Okay, well, thank you both for your service. I'm mentally disabled as a veteran. My wife said I was stupid. Anybody want to guess what I told her? No, don't guess. You'd probably be right. But no, the point is we have a program for disabled veterans. You can go, process a link, and we will provide you expedited screening through security to help you. I mean, we have people every day, veterans, who have come back, lost limbs, PTSD, wheelchairs, whatever. We will help them to get through security screening quickly. But we are still going to screen them. And I had a veteran challenge me on that. He says, I'm a retired blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's true. But just because you were good and trustworthy then doesn't necessarily mean you are today. And that's what we're concerned about, is where are you today? But you can do that. And you see the phone numbers up there, down here, contact center you can call, because we really do want to take care of people and meet their needs. So let's talk about pre-check and global entry. Don't waste your money on pre-check. Okay? You can get it, and you'll get it pretty quick, normally 2 weeks. The reason I say don't waste your money, if you spend $22 more, you get global entry. What that means is you get pre-check and global entry. When you come back from an overseas trip and you have to go through customs, if you're in global entry, your wait time in Atlanta is generally less than 3 minutes to get through customs. And so you want to do that. It's not difficult. You just go in, you put all your information in there, name, address, phone number. They ask you some basic questions. Where were you born? You know, and all of those things. And you submit it. What will happen, generally speaking, 2 weeks, you'll get a notice about, oh, here's your temporary number. You need to set up an appointment to go and interview. They look at you, take your picture, do all of that good stuff. And then you get your global entry access number and card. I'm sorry? The question is really, I got my provisional approval, now trying to get an interview. So first of all, you're right, it is. I will tell you significant changes have been made. Again, I can only speak to Atlanta. We used to do it only like from 8 to 4 or whatever. They've extended the hours. They're also doing those interviews 7 days a week. In Atlanta, here's the trick. Anybody have international travel coming up? Ooh, lots of you. Okay. Anybody have an empty suitcase you can put me in it? Okay, I guess not. And here's the reason. Go ahead and apply. If your travel has you coming back into the country in Atlanta, and you've already got your provisional approval, when you go through customs coming back into the country, they will approve it right then. Which is what we did. And so it helps to do it that way. That one time will still be a problem, but you will get your interview and approval very quickly. Most of the airports are, so the question is, if I've applied for it and I'm going on a trip and I'm coming back into Kennedy, do they do the same thing there? And the answer is, I don't know. But what you can do is go to cbp.gov, and they will have, just like TSA has, a place where you can ask that question. And I would do that and ask the question. So certainly apply for global entry as opposed to pre-check.
Charleston is doing it now, and they didn't used to, but they do appointments now in Charleston for global entry.
There you go.
Cut 2 hours off.
Here you go. So Charleston's a good place to go. Okay. This is a subject that people have heard a lot about, real ID. Real ID, 20 years ago, they passed this law that said you had to have a real ID. So before I talk about it, let me tell you, do not confuse the term real ID with valid ID. Real ID is a specific type of identification. There are other forms of identification that are valid. Okay? I relayed this story to somebody earlier. A few weeks ago, actually it was in October, I was doing the ticket document checking during the last government shutdown, and I had a gentleman come, showed me his retired military ID, and I explained to him that it was okay, but it was not a real ID. This gentleman wanted to argue with me. Said, this is a real ID. I said, no, it's a valid ID. No, it's a real ID, and I should know because I'm a retired Army colonel. And I said, well, so am I. I said, but it is a valid ID, and we went round and round, and I explained, and he goes, oh, okay. About 20 minutes later, a young lady showed up. Same situation. I said, this is not a real ID, but it is a valid ID. She argued with me. I explained it to her again. And then I looked more closely at her ID, and she was a retired Navy 2-star flag officer. And I said, I guess the Army colonel messed up with the admiral, ma'am. She goes, yes, but I was in the Navy, so I'm used to the Army being screwed up. Don't you laugh at me now. So, my point being, there are other forms of identification. The two methods of real ID, what you'll hear that term, is a state-issued ID, and it will have a star on it. If you look at your driver's license, if there's a star up normally in the right-hand corner, it is a real ID. The other is a U.S. passport. So look at your state-issued ID. If it's a real ID, you're good to go. If not, take your passport with you, and then go to, I guess, wherever your local DMV is and get a new state-issued ID that will be a real ID. That will make your life much easier. If you have a question, can I use whatever, such as retired military ID? Again, where do you think you could find the answer? TSA.gov. You go through, check real IDs, there will be a link, and there's about 20 different IDs that are valid. But here's the problem. Much like the question about the unprofessional pat-down. You get me checking your ID, I may or may not know the list. Because I don't do it but once every 2 or 3 years. And so I'm going to look, and I go, this isn't a real ID. And if I don't have that list in front of me, then now we're going to go back and forth. So that I would recommend you try to do it. It's not an excuse, it's just the fact that that would save you some trouble. And you can see the link, tsa.gov/real ID right here. You'll see these. That'll be on your driver's license if you have one. And you see some down here, passport, Department of Defense ID, trusted traveler, enhanced driver's license, state-issued IDs. All of those are important. And then you see this date. That was 2025. That was a long time ago. But that's okay, not to be outdone. We in the federal government take other things, and these are just some answers to questions. We came out here a short time ago and said, if you do not have a real ID by February 1st, you can't fly. There is a process. You come, we're going to pull you aside if you don't have a real ID. You're going to pay, I think it's $45. You have a little thing, you answer a lot of questions. It sends a thing off to some place, I think it's out in Denver, and they confirm your identity, and it's good for 10 days. And then you can use that to travel. And they're going to say, well, how would they know? Well, they'll ask you questions. What town were you born in? Where did you graduate from high school? Okay. What street did you live on when you were 10 years old? Just questions that only you would know. And you might ask, well, how would they know?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
The government knows everything about you. They probably know what color socks you have on right now. I don't know. But no, and we do it all. We've been doing it verbally for free for years, but the whole point now is to try to get people to get the real ID. Again, it makes it more secure for the traveling public.
Can I ask one question?
Surely.
What about this thing now that passports, that people don't want to let you use your passport if it's got less than 6 months on it?
Okay, the question is, what about, I can't travel because my passport is less than 6 months till expiration. That is really, TSA doesn't care. That's an airline issue. Because if you travel, let's say, to Italy right now because the Olympics are going on, and you overextend your stay, and you want to stay beyond 6 months, now when you come back to the States, you don't have a valid passport to get back into the country. Or if you get sick, you get in an accident, we have the same issue now when you come back. Now, if you're a U.S. citizen, you can prove your citizenship. They are going to let you into the country. But let's pretend for a moment. I mentioned my girlfriend's husband was Iranian. Let's say he leaves, he has 4 months left on his passport, he goes, visits family back in that part of the world. His passport, he's a U.S. citizen, but his passport expires. Now he comes back, all kinds of questions are going to get raised. So that's the reason. Here's the big thing. Arrive early, pack smart, I already talked about that. Be ready at the checkpoint. Go to tsa.gov if you have questions, and we'll try to answer those. Those are the websites. Clear is a program that's in airports that helps. It's kind of like pre-check. You still have to get screened. Use your own judgment about applying for that. And so, one of the big things is we've been pretty fortunate since 9/11, and we do screen everyone. We actually screened that individual. Anybody know what that is? Huh? Anybody ever watch the TV show The Walking Dead? That is actually a mannequin from The Walking Dead, because it's filmed just south of Atlanta, and they were taking it to a trade show, and they wanted to take it to the trade show, so they bought a seat on the plane for it, and we had to screen it. Okay, so I'll stick. I know you got to move on. I'll stick around to answer questions one-on-one, but I do appreciate this because, like I say, I got 2 working days left in my career since 1965. Have great travels.